Super interesting. Super very interesting. Let me do some sharing real quick. Get it out of the way. Alright. Copy link. We'll go with this one. And we'll go with this person. I hate doing this. I really do. I hate fucking asking people to come watch my feed. And if I didn't think people were, prevented from seeing it, I wouldn't do this. But censorship does funny things to people. And I see so many of these truthers who, really, there is no legitimate, viable reason why these people are in the positions they're in. How did they get where they are? Yeah, that's the point. That was the plan. Just happens to work out this way. What if the Bible is just a prediction, a misinterpreted rival description of a future condition, a something to come, a past petition? What if we're dumb? What if we're numb, foolishly thinking the next time we come we won't do so much drinking? What if the linking is one time only? Would you still be sinking, following holy, roly-poly clergy people, bowing, cowering to sturdy steeples, made to bleed you of all you are? Would you still reach for heaven if it only held stars? Alright, so I gave you guys long enough. I decided I would look up tinfoil hat. Did I feed the dog? Yeah, I did. So I wanted to know where this came from because I think it's interesting that it's the go-to. It's the thing that everybody knows to call somebody who questions things. And up until, the last 10 years or so, it's been a lot harder of a thing to maybe show people. But it dawned on me a long time ago, like, what if the reason why tinfoil hat is such a common thing you don't want to be? It's up there with, you don't want to be somebody who doesn't, an atheist. You don't want to be somebody who questions the shape of the earth. You don't want to be somebody who doesn't believe everything Israel says. You don't want to be a tinfoil hat wearer. What if they do that because they, especially, I'm assuming, I'm going to see when this sort of, this term came up. Was this back when people didn't leave the house without wearing hats? And again, up until COVID, which again, since what you think of as germs is literally called the germ theory. The idea of invisible creatures invading your body, one cough to another, like that whole shit. That is, it's been debunked. It's this isn't like my theory or something like that. This isn't some outlandish, crazy, no one's ever thought about this before kind of thing. Prior to the 1880s, just before they wanted us to start trusting them with injecting ourselves with unknown substances for our protection, the world forever believed in miasma, which literally translates to bad air. So the reason, get back. The reason people got sick, was because the environment they were in was sick. And they were getting sick from the world around them. It wasn't invisible germs, invisible, really, really intelligent, self-replicating creatures making people sick. It was the environment, what you put into your body. And then in the 1880s, they were like, now it's the germs. They're like Germans, except they're invisible. They're germs and they're invading you. You need to get this protection on the inside. Let us give you a shot. And people did it. People did what they were told. And the way they work things out, like at the same time that they're introducing vaccines, they're also introducing hygienic standards. People are no longer pouring shit on the road, so it just rolls down the street. Dead horses are no longer just being left there to fester. We started changing things around. Screens, thing we absolutely, completely take for granted, is window screens. And I've actually done a deep dive into it before. I should probably do it again. But window screens are they are a modern day marvel, an absolute marvel. And because we were able to put screens in the windows, there were less critters in the houses. There were less bugs in the houses. We started dealing with the bed bug situation and the lice, and people were bathing in cleanliness standards were adopting and were adjusting. And so people, at the same time, they were like, oh yeah, you guys are getting, there's less sickness, less diphtheria and typhoid and all this other shit because, we're giving you shots. No, it's because you cleaned up the shit environment that supposedly we lived in. Again, this is all 1880s, 1890s, this is all fucking fantasy. Who knows the reality behind any of this? But this is the narrative that we're supposed to know. And so, when you start really looking into, like the top 3 or 4 hepatitis outbreaks of all time, all coincide with a vaccination program. There was a bad ingredient or a bad practice or something associated with vaccines. It wasn't like people just were spreading hepatitis to each other. It's fucking nuts, man. And this is just the history that they've whitewashed and they give us to make us supposedly feel better. It's not true by any means. It's literally just, it's insanity. It's the more you look into history and compare it to what ChatGPT produces today, the more you realize it's the same shit. And so, back in those days, everyone wore a hat when they left the house, men and women. Again, supposedly, according to the pictures and everything. So what if the whole notion of the tinfoil hat was because all it would take to keep you a hell of a lot more protected, especially when you leave the house, is to put a piece of tinfoil in your hat? You know, what if it's not a constant thing? It's just a pulse or something that you get when you're outside. Say the walls happen to protect you in some sort of form. But when you're outside, you get hit with it. And it's that kind of shit that affects you. Like, you want to think that if you got hit with a laser or something, that you would immediately be affected by it, and, you know, the symptoms would be there. You don't want to think that, you know, like COVID. COVID coincided with the rollout of 5G. People lost their sense of smell, their sense of taste. You know, the animals are doing crazy shit. It coincides. You know, because it definitely didn't resemble sickness. Your body was definitely resisting it, but it wasn't like a sickness you'd experienced before. And the whole masks and all that other dumb shit, you know, it didn't do anything. And so again, what if instead of people thinking that, like, they needed to get shots, or they had, instead they put tinfoil in their hats when they left the house? What if that would have prevented people from getting hit? What if that's like a really basic, obvious secret, and that's why it's such a taboo? That's why it's one of those things that even kids will say, tinfoil hat. They don't even know why. Why? What does a tinfoil hat even imply? Right? Think about it. The tinfoil hat implies that you think the government is capable of beaming extra low ELF waves and frequencies and stuff into your head without you knowing about it. Pfft, that's crazy. You know, and maybe before we walked around with cell phones, what's up, open-minded? That would be an accurate statement. You know, people, it'd be understandable why people would think that's crazy, I guess. But, you know, what if that secret's been put in our heads? You know, that they've protected themselves. You know, they've protected themselves from us protecting ourselves, just through these mental games that they play, that they've played on us forever. America got into $38 trillion national debt, and to who? Why would we be in $38 trillion worth of debt? Once we got to $38 billion worth of debt, $38 million worth of debt, how come the debtors, whoever these people are, didn't collect? Didn't say, all right, you know, fuck you. Give us our money. We want our money. Give me my money, Brian. Give me my money, Brian. Where's my fucking money, Brian? That's real, though. Right, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, you know, the same characters it always is. The Erica Kirks, the Rothsteins. But it's you know, it's such a ridiculous fantasy. It's a fallacy. It's like you believing that you're born sinful and that Jesus died for your sins. You know, it's that same mentality, that guilt mentality. America's $38 trillion in debt. from trying to protect you. Oh, by the way, we're the #1 superpower source in the world. What the fuck are you talking about? Then how do those things go together? You like Charlie, so you're probably a racist. Piece of shit, you know? I can't believe anybody fell for Charlie. The thing, too, is like so many of you are fake. You didn't fall for Charlie until after he was killed. Oh, that wasn't popular. Suddenly I'm down to one person. You know, this shit's wild. But again, go back to the tinfoil thing. What if that's what they've been doing this whole time? That's what they always do. You know, I know for certain, growing up, I wondered, because you would hear about people that think that we didn't go to the moon, and you'd occasionally hear about somebody who thought the Earth was flat, and you'd just be like, you know, why? Why do they think that way? Not at least I would. I didn't just say, you know, oh, they're kooks. I'd say, you know, why are they demonized like that? Because I knew what that was like. I knew what it was like to be demonized from a young age when I was like, no, I don't really believe in Jesus. Sorry, that's stupid. But for years, I'm old. I've known for my entire life that you're supposed to believe the Earth is round. Crazy people believe it's flat. And even crazier people think we didn't go to the moon. Like it's the same sort of narrative, you know. And so, interestingly, in my 30s, the notion of, hey, you've been lied to about the Earth shape started to come out. It was being shown everywhere. People were noticing. And so it's like, you know, suddenly you have to look at you know, why was that specifically demonized? That to be true. I mean, especially when you look at like your Christians, you would think Christians would be all over the flat Earth narrative. Yeah, I'll be curious. Not demonizing people would certainly. Demonizing people, you can't demonize somebody that isn't bad. Like, you could try all day to demonize me, and you couldn't do it. I don't do anything that I'm ashamed of or embarrassed by. So there is no demonization of me. You know, when the Israel and the friars come out and they say, well, if you open up the books on Israel, you demonize Israel. Well, that shouldn't happen. Why would looking into the history of what Israel's been doing demonize them if they're doing good things? Oh, here we go. Do you know how great Jesus Christ is? Do you know how great? What kind of fucking psychopath? Let's think about that. So, this obvious NPC moron Christian stumbles onto this page and, psst, David. Stumbles onto this page and, you know, is so compelled to say something, though they're not smart enough to actually say something. So he just says, do you know how great Jesus Christ is? Over and over again. Like, do you not see the irony in that? Do you not? how ridiculous that is, that's the mentality of the Christian. That's that NPC, again, compelled to say something, but not smart enough to actually say something that matters. What? There's food there. I'm just waiting for everybody to get. Just wait. Shh. You that narrative to other religions as well. What the hell does that have to do with it? May the power of Christ compel you. Yeah, right. What, dude? What? What? I mean, I just think it's so strange that after all of this time, all of these daily videos, God has not, inspired, enabled someone to come in here with a reasonable mindset and intelligently defend what they're fucking talking about. Like, it's crazy. Like, look at this. Like, the next Christian that comes in says, you don't need drugs, dude. Wait, you don't need drugs, you need Jesus. Seriously. That's how just dumb they are. Like, everything they say is extremely off-putting. If you switched it out for anything, if somebody said the same thing, you don't need drugs, you need Muhammad, you'd be like, fuck you, dude. Don't say that shit. It's just an incredible level of stupidity to where, you catch more flies with honey kind of thing. You would think they would be like, hey, I understand you're struggling with this, and I struggled with it too. Here, let me share with you what I experienced that solidified my faith. Wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't it be nice if that would happen? But they never do. It's like they're incapable. I ask you guys to do those things because, hey, look, we're up to 13. You guys need to and to the video, But if I say those things, the number drops, so I don't want to say them. Dumb. I love you. God does more, though. What kind of stupid shit is that? You know what? Your God can take its love and fuck itself. You're gonna Palestinian children who are either starving to death or dying from the bomb being dropped on them after starving to death. Right? Like, it's just insane. I want none of your God's love. None. If what's preventing your silly God from helping those poor Palestinian people is wasting time on, me, well, fuck that. No, go ahead. Leave it. I can handle my own shit. Thank you. Please go help those people who are being genocided by, your God's chosen people. Here we go. Look at this. Let's see. You are clearly full of resentment. No such thing as Palestine, says some dumbass, right? Like, even your silly Bible talks about Palestine, but whatever. Then we have, I rebuke your evil talk. Well, if you don't want none of his love, you will get his wrath. Will I? So your God is so superficial and so insecure that if you don't like me, I'm gonna hurt you. I love you so much, I'm gonna hurt you if you question me. So stupid. You don't know what genocide means. Yep, I don't know what genocide means. Bible doesn't say Palestine once. Yeah, it does. Refer to Palestine all the time, and there's so many references to Palestine throughout history. You know, remember when the Jews had no place to go, so they showed up in Palestine, and the Palestinians foolishly took them in. I mean, it's Palestine isn't used for the entire region. The name comes from the Philistines and refers to their coastal area. In the Old Testament, the border of land of Israel known as Canaan. Well, I mean, I don't really care. I don't. If the name Palestine doesn't appear in the New Testament, okay, but it does appear throughout history. You know, the Bible's nonsense. I can be wrong, but in history, Palestine, the reason there's just so much that, you know, there's so much of it. I don't even know why I'm entertaining such a dumb comment. Palestine doesn't exist, never existed. It's fucking stupid. Yeah, I don't. The Bible's dumb. I don't claim to know everything the Bible says. I've been looking into it as much as I can, and everything is just dumb. But what you find out is the Bible is just a Jewish fairy tale. You know, Hebrew was invented in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Their whole thing is just it's a falsehood. It's because they control the narrative that they created the narrative. But it's you know, there's you are a total idiot. Try to tell me what it says, then find out it doesn't. Oh, it doesn't matter. I never did say it mattered. You know, I thought it was in the Bible, but the Bible doesn't matter to me. But Palestine is mentioned throughout history countless times. You know, countless times. And the colonization of Palestine has been going on forever. You know, this goes back to these bullshit notions of collectives of Jews marching thousands of miles to you know, start colonizing Palestine. But you have things like the Havara Agreement from 1933, which supposedly the Nazis who hated the Jews so much that they killed them, not signed the Havara Agreement with the Jewish federations, which allowed 60,000 German Jews to be transferred to Palestine so they could start colonizing it. Their wealth was allowed to be transferred, and the government paid for their trip. You know, there's so much more to this shit. And let's see, look at this shit. You're overthinking. My overthinking what? YOUR overthinking. How do you overthink? Look at this shit. You have no idea what I'm talking. I don't. Right. The Havara Agreement. Right. That doesn't exist. The Havara. Let's just show you guys. Oops. The Havara Agreement was an agreement between not, and this is a locked. It's all locked. Can't change this. Agreement between Nazi Germany and Zionist organizations signed on August 25th, 1933. The agreement was finalized after 3 months of talks by the Zionist Federation of Germany, the Anglo-Palestine Bank. Weird that there would be an Anglo-Palestine Bank if Palestine didn't exist. Under the directive of the Jewish Agency and the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. It was a major factor in making possible the migration of approximately 60,000 German Jews to Palestine between 1933 and 1939. Because see, I'm making this shit up. you know, I'm making shit up. That's weird. That's weird that they did that. You have mandatory Palestine was an administrative territory that existed between 1920 and 1948 in the region of Palestine. And after 1922, under the terms of the League of Nations mandate for Palestine, the British took the territory, deeming it presently unfit for self-governance. This is how they set the stage. It existed from 20 to 48. And then in 1948, they say that they pulled out, right? But they didn't. They just turned around because the notion that Israel committed the Nakba on May 15th, Israel didn't exist. So how could Israel have an army? How could Israel have a military? How could Israel have anything that could be unleashed upon the Palestinian people? It wasn't the Israelis that did it. It was the Allies. It was the United States and the Brits that did it. The Brits were already there, right? The Brits were already there. So they just turned around. And remember, these are metzitzia, like, these are the worst people in the world. You know, they literally, you know, the Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, the ritualistic sexual abuse that is everywhere in Israel, the metzitzia practice that happens constantly all over the world in the United States. Like, these are insane things. Who is the Palestinian president then? Yeah, right. Because if they don't have a president in a Western style democracy government setup, then they must not be legitimate. And even though it's just, there's like, you know, the existence of Palestine is not even in question as far as the Jewish history goes. Because you always have to remember, if I'm reading to you from Wikipedia, people will say, oh, Wikipedia. Well, this is Naftali Bennett. At the time in 2010, he was a future Israeli prime minister. Currently, he is a former Israeli prime minister. But he's always been a, you know, high-ranking Mossad agent, like, you know, just as connected as it gets. This is him in 2010 talking to the IsraelNationalNews.com.
Metzitzia, in conjunction with My Israel, has arranged instruction day for wiki editors. The goal of the day is to teach people how to edit in Wikipedia, which is the #1 source of information today in the world. As a way of example, if someone searches the Gaza flotilla, we want to be there. We want to be the guys who influence what is written there, how it's written, and to ensure that it's balanced and Zionist in nature. I came here to...
Okay, so balanced and Zionist. So this is one of those things where it's like, how do you have even a reasonable conversation with someone who hides behind dumbass arguments like there's no such thing as Palestine? Like, there's not even well, who's the leader then? Well, again, the place has been in one form or another since, you know, this part, British mandate, Palestine. You know, they talk about the book in 1617 as often being like this original source of you know, sort of making Israel a thing, but that's just not, it's not, it doesn't jive. If you go back to the auto emancipation pamphlet in 1882, which is often considered the origins of modern Zionism, which then leads to proto-Zionism, which is a different thing that goes back supposedly hundreds and hundreds of years. But modern Zionism is supposedly it doesn't even it's not even any different than proto-Zionism. But it's one of the most interesting. So I don't even want to get it wrong. So we'll go auto emancipation. So auto emancipation, right, is a pamphlet written in German by Russian, Polish, Jewish doctor and activist Leon Pinsker. Though it was written anonymously, it's attributed to him after the fact. It was supposedly published in German by a Russian, Polish, Jewish guy. And for some reason, he publishes it in German, and it goes around the world. Like, what kind of crazy shit is that? I always wondered why German was a language that was offered in school. I took German in school. I thought it was like Spanish and German. Those are my choices. They had already gotten rid of French long before I had the opportunity. It is considered a founding document of modern Jewish nationalism, especially Zionism. This is so crazy. Pinsker discusses the origins of anti-Semitism, so this is the first thing that's going to pop up, and argued for Jewish self-rule and the development of a Jewish national consciousness. He wrote that Jews would never become the social equals of non-Jews. They had a state of their own, because everybody has their own state, right? He called on the Jewish leaders to convene and address the problem. In the pamphlet, he describes anti-Jewish attacks as a psychosis, a pathological disorder, and an irrational phobia. Literally what they do to this day, right? Did you say there was ritualistic rape all over Israel? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's called so the article is called Bottom of Darkness. All you have to do is search it. It'll be in the description when I'm done. I purposefully left the description off, and I'll put it in after the fact. There'll be a link to the article, but you can look it up for yourself. It's type in Israel Hayom, Hayom, and then type Bottom of Darkness, and it'll pop up. It was an article from April of 2025, which really should have gone extremely viral, but for some strange reason it didn't. Israel Hayom is Israel's #1 free weekly. It's called a free weekly, but it's like a propaganda magazine, thin little magazine, but it's distributed to everyone for free. And Israel Hayom was Sheldon Adelson's baby, and the Sheldon Adelson has come up so much recently because Trump keeps talking about Miriam Adelson. $60 million in the bank. I asked her if she was more loyal to Israel or the United States, and she said nothing, which means she's more loyal to Israel, I think. When I was president, the Adelsons probably had more presidential visits than anyone else. He would call me on the phone and say, I need to see you. And I'd say, I'm the president. You can't just come to my office. And he'd just show up and he'd make his way in. And like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense, but it doesn't make sense the way we're supposed to think about things. Karen, what's going on? Only Spanish and German. What kind of government daycare were you stuck with? Yeah. Shit. I totally blanked on what I was talking about. That's why I don't answer comments till I get done with my thinking. I know I was talking about Trump doing something. Terrible Trump voice. And see, that brings you back to the whole tinfoil thing. What if that's what that does? What if tinfoil in your hat prevents you from from being affected by whatever that is. Look up the Israel Hayom Bottom of Darkness article. There is no, I was talking about Sheldon Adelson, but there is no, like, so there's no, like, you can't go, oh, well, some Goyim, some anti-Semite posted this article. No, it doesn't work that way. Israel Hayom is 100% top to bottom, from the people working the internet, profiles to the highest ranking editors, and it's all them, friars across the board. No question. So they're not going to publish some anti-Semitism, right? Didn't work that way. And there's no, like, so you eliminate that. There's no specific target, like there's no political gain, or it's just a story that exists. It's almost like a brag, I guess. But to me, it's the most important article ever written, because it tells you the why. I am constantly, or at least was, asking, like, 'cause it's so interesting to me that people are like, I used to support Israel, this. Why did you used to support Israel? Like, I can say, I can't say I ever supported Israel, but I didn't know enough about it. When I was a kid, I didn't know anything. But it was as soon as, I was a reasonable adult who was going to speak on this subject, I wanted to know at least a little bit of what I was talking about. And the reality is, when you just have a real basic understanding of, so Israel was created in 48. In Palestine as reparations or something for what supposedly happened in Germany a few years earlier. How does that even make sense? How does oppressing another people who had nothing to do with anything, thousands of miles away, hundreds, maybe, thousands of miles, I think, how over 1,000. I don't know how far it is from Germany to fucking Palestine, whatever. But how would that even begin to make sense? It's just, it's not even like Palestine was a secret helper of Hitler or whatever. If anything, Palestine was compromised long before the official, the Nakba, long before 48, as I read to you earlier with the Havara Agreement. What's up, Power? The Havara Agreement, they were already colonizing Israel or colonizing Palestine. And they'd been doing it forever. Like, it just, the Havara Agreement is just a piece. But you start to look into it, and you look at, World War I was about establishing mandatory Palestine. All of the rest of the shit was just, it was just bonus. It was just extra that they were able to do. But, and again, that's if you believe the narrative we're given, which, it's we're talking about the 19s and 18s and 17s. And even if you just a few years, even if you happen to have somebody that was alive back then, you got 100-and-something-year-old grandfather or whatever, he doesn't remember it. He was a little baby. How many political things do you remember from when you were 5? You might have some memories from being 5, but you don't remember political shit. How the news has always painted it. You've never understood how the news always painted Israel as the good guys. Do you know who owns and operates the news? It's called Hasbara, Hasbara. And it's supposed to, it used to translate to propaganda, but then propaganda became a bad word. So now it translates to explaining, or to explain. It translates to, quote, to explain. Snowden, I was 5 in 2012. I remember Edward Snowden leaked CIA. Yeah, I bet you do. I bet you remember all about it. So stupid. Like, just dumb. You don't. You don't. Especially now, in a modern day society where, there's internet and all that, it is different. But as far as the pre-internet age, it's a whole different thing. And if you weren't alive prior to the internet, you can't understand what I'm saying. It's hard to even, for me, it's hard to even remember what it was like before that. When you couldn't just look shit up. But World War I was about establishing mandatory Palestine and making the Palestinians weak and reliant. The British, oh, hey, no, we got this. You guys aren't capable of ruling yourselves, so we got this. And they did a good job of distraction because they actually seemingly would put money in, and they would care, and all while funneling Jews into Palestine to just keep bolstering the Jewish population, that was just ever growing. These settlements that were growing, they were getting funneled in. And as far back as you can see, the narrative is not the Jewish settlements were attacked. The narrative is always that some form of Jewish settlement attacked a civilian population one way or another. But you have there's just so much more to all this, and so when they established mandatory Palestine, they created a completely reliant people. After 1920 to 48. So that's just under 30 years, or that's just under 30 years. After 30 years, that covers multiple generations of, hey, don't worry about it. The British have your back. You don't have to train for anything. You don't have to set up a government. You don't have to have a leader. The British have your back. And so after the look at this shit. Get some rest. Look at how desperate they are. They're not addressing anything. They're just talking shit and trying to get attention away from what's being said. Why are they so desperate to try to stop me from talking about this? If I'm wrong, just point out what I'm wrong about. But after almost 30 years, the Palestinians, they had nothing. They were just fat, comfortable, lazy, They were relatively happy. I'm sure in the background they were, they always knew something was happening, and you could see again the consistent attacks from settlers on this, that, and the other. But it was in 1948 when suddenly those British military, the Allied military, literally did a 180 and was like, all right, we're no longer, we're pulling out, they say. We're pulling out a British mandate Palestine. They're pulling out. And it literally coincides with, the pulling out. And the next day, Israel is established. The first town, the town of Acre, is taken. Although Israel had used a tactic, well, the friars, because Israel didn't exist, the friars had used a tactic. Look, another mental rambling pothead. See what I mean? The mental stuff, like I showed you earlier, everything is it's mental. There's something mentally wrong. It's a delusion. It's an irrational phobia. It's a disorder. You have a disorder if you question things and you know history. It's a disorder. This is just how they operate. They can't. That's all they have. Karen's been kicked out how many times now? These fuckers don't though. These crybabies are allowed to sit here and make the same crybaby point. And I'm so grateful for it. Because you have to take it into consideration. These people aren't here in any sort of support. They're clearly here for negative purposes. So if they're here for negative purposes, then they're trying everything they can. If they had something that they could do or say to make me look bad or whatever, they would absolutely jump all over that. Instead, they say all this other dumb shit. Leah, Bia. My family's, I can't do it right now, Leah. I'm sorry. But look at this same crybaby shit. I'm reporting you for saying the truth. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Why are you so upset with me for telling the truth? If there's nothing nefarious, then there's no need to, be upset about it. And so they literally just turned the people around. And they killed some 150,000 Palestinians or wait, is it they made it? Like, the Nakba they think they killed like 50,000 or 20,000 and made 150,000. I don't remember at the end of the day, the numbers that exist in history are, absolutely totally skewed bullshit numbers. They're as softened as they can possibly be because I showed you, Naftali Bennett said that everything that's in Wikipedia needs to be balanced and Zionist in nature. That wasn't an accident. He literally went because he thought, should I say paints Jews in a fair light? Or no, he said, fuck it, I'm gonna say Zionist. Fuck it, I don't care. Balanced and Zionist in nature. If they didn't act immoral, murder, thief, and destroy, they wouldn't get the reaction. Don't know what that means, but it's the narrative is just skewed and controlled. So we're supposed to believe that again. So World War I puts mandatory Palestine in charge. They decide to turn around and they go, oh well, World War II, they were the victims. They were the victims of they weren't allowed to have life, liberty, and land, and they were persecuted. So what we're gonna do is that place we've been talking about taking forever, we're gonna go take that place now. And the Palestinians, we're gonna offer the Palestinians 46% of their land. We're gonna say 44% of their here you can have 44% of the land that you occupy basically 100% of. And no surprise, the Palestinians rejected it. It's called the Palestinian Partition Plan from 46. And the Palestinians rejected it, obviously. And so the friars in charge were like, all right, well, then I guess you're going to lose 80 to 90% of your land. And they did what they did. And now they have next to nothing. Nakba, 750,000 to place, 15,000 killed. Yeah, something like that. It used to sound horrendous until now. The Nakba used to be, it literally translates to the catastrophe. But it was nothing compared to what's happening now. These are just, and so this is like the crux. This is the main piece, right? You have to ask yourself, how does anybody like benefit from that and live with themselves and just be okay with it? Like, it's so, how do you cry holla hoax, holla hoax, holla hoax, we need to be special, holla hoax, and then do the same thing to another group of people? I mean, no Israelis died in the October 7th false flag, just like none of them were taken hostage. Were Hannibal directive killings, but there was no October 7th. It was a false flag operation. It was nonsense. Just the most obvious nonsense. Which is why there is no proper investigation. Why hasn't there been an investigation? To validate Israel's claims. Why not? Because they don't need to, obviously. But none of it stands up to scrutiny. And scrutiny is not opposition. Scrutiny is just a natural, curiosity. I want to get behind you. So I can't get behind you until these questions are answered. So here, just answer these questions real quick, especially since you're in the right, and then I'll get behind you. But I keep trying to get Algo to get in here and get on the conversation. He's just scared, I guess. But he shared with me that the Flynn guy, I don't remember his first name, but he's one of these truthers that's allowed to have the numbers I used to be allowed to have. Yeah, all these guys, their feeds really jumped after Charlie got kirked. Me? Not so much. But he was talking about it. His video was about how he supported Israel prior to October 7th and even after October 7th until he started asking questions, and then friars were mean to him. And once the friars were mean to him, that was unacceptable. How dare you be mean to me? How dare you women? We're also fucking crazy, low-level selfish. I'll go. What's up? Your comments have been getting censored, apparently. But what's that guy's name? Flynn? What's his first name? You heard the guy say it. I supported Israel prior to October 7th. How? What did you see prior to October 7th? He even ends the video by saying, I probably would still support Israel if they just weren't so mean to me. Quinn. I know. I don't know his first name. Quinn. I keep saying Quinn. I don't know his first name, though. They don't want people discussing the truth about what they're doing. Yeah. But you see, truthers like that Quinn guy. I mean, his numbers have exploded recently. For a guy that's supposedly talking bad about Israel, his numbers have been allowed to explode. And that is not how it works. You guys see it with my feed. There is something out, different. You guys see something different with my feed. There's something about my feed that used to be allowed to get 40,000 plus views, and now the day after Charlie got kirked, I'll be lucky to get 100. What just happened with that? America, a white country. Is it? What previous comment? I don't see any previous comment of yours. See, there's a lot of you in here that might just be trolling, might be scrolling and trolling while rolling, you know. But I challenge you, you know, because if you're trolling me, you've trolled other people. More than likely, it's other truthers. How come you're seeing shit on my feed you don't see anywhere else? You guys are all saying these things about the comments like it's not something you experience. People normally see your comments. It's not even that big a leap of faith there. It's like, yeah, people should see your comments. You make the comments. All comments are being removed. By who? Right? I only have 8 viewers, right? I shouldn't have any sort of attention. 8 viewers? Compare me to Ian Carroll, who appeared on the scene in March of 2023, and within a month or two, he's on the Joe Rogan show. Compare me to Fuentes. Compare me to literally, like, I can think of like 10, 15 people just offhand that are laying in. Sarah Holcomb, she does a great job. Like I Am Blakely. There are all these people that do something very similar to me, but seemingly are allowed to, you know, have a lot more. They get paid. They're getting paid. You know, Cooper makes some of the best videos I can think of. He just put out a good one about Erica Kirk. He made some great videos about Las Vegas. You know, he's done some great videos. And even in this one, you know, I've been calling him out on all of his videos about him being in. So this time he talked about Israel a little bit. Don't say the Z word. Which Z word? It's the AI tech. It's up on words and we'll block the comments. Yeah, I don't think so. I think it is to a degree, but I think it's also there. On my feed, there's human interaction. It's just too obvious. The U.S. is predominantly Anglo-Saxon, but their numbers are dwindling, and you guys, yeah, who gives a fuck? Like, if you're still wrapped up in colors, skin colors, you should be on a different feed. Leah, let me show you what just happened with your comment. All right, I'm gonna send you a picture. You just got a symbol. You earned a symbol today, Leah. It's crack pipe. Yeah, absolutely crack pipe. That makes sense. I can smoke crack without a torch. I'm just that good at it. Fuck yeah. So again, you always have to ask yourself, who are these random trolls that come here so frequently, knowing that this feed is dedicated to killing pedophiles and eliminating the Friar control scheme, the chosen control scheme? What regular red-blooded Americans are going to be mad about that? What population, what group of people is going to be mad at me thinking we should kill pedos and eliminate the friars? It seems pretty simple, right? Well, I can't see it on the comment thread. No, of course not. Did you ever figure out what the symbol is? Supposedly, it's the universal translation symbol. But usually, the thing that's supposedly translated, like, it'll be something mundane that you say that then, from my perspective, looks all weird. But it doesn't, it's like it's nothing, you know? They end up blocking the comments that they don't want people to see. So the symbol is something else. I don't know. Ask yourself why, again, I literally say this feed is about killing pedos and eliminating the friars. And instead you get somebody that goes, oh, well, I'm not a Fed. And then says the same dumb nonsense that other people, the walking in circles. Yep, I'm walking in circles. Yep, that's definitely worth pointing out in this discussion. Like you see it over and over again. So you have to ask yourself, like, yeah, it is creepy. It's creepy as shit. But it goes with all of it. You know, these are inbred, dumb ass fucking friars. And so I this is what I was talking about, the whole idea of how, why, how could an entire population be so awful? How can an entire population be so comfortable living off of taking from everyone else while belittling anybody else who struggles and might need some help? You know, how do you knowingly ride in a bus to a location where families lived in those houses, you know, not even a week beforehand, like there's still food and shit in the cabinets, and the bus stops, the door opens, and you go running out so you can claim your house of the houses? Who could do that? Who says, if I don't steal your house, somebody else will? Whose mentality is that?
Jacob, you know this is not your house.
Yes, but if I go, you don't go back. So what's the problem? What are you yelling at me? I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
But
It's easy to yell at me, but I didn't do this.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No one is allowed to steal it, يا عمي.
זה לא שלי להחזיר.
You know, the whole the Holocaust story in the 90s. I always forget the guy's name because I don't care, and I should remember. But you know, when him and his wife were kids, she lived outside of the camps and would secretly throw apples over the fucking gun line wall. Like it's just such a stupid story. But she would throw apples to him over the wall every day. And at first they tell the story that they never communicated. It was this unspoken thing. But then, you know, as time would tell, you know, time would pass. I would see you tomorrow. And, you know, the story progresses, blah, blah, blah. He ends up doing the talk show circuit, telling this story about him and his wife, and how after, you know, they got liberated, they were at a party one day, and they was a blind date. He got introduced to her on a blind date, and he instantly recognized her and asked her to marry him, and they've been happily ever after since. And it's this beautiful Holocaust story, but it's not true. It's not true at all. It's fake. And when asked about it, you know, when interviewed, asked, you know, how did you tell such a fake story? Like, how did you live with yourself? And he said, well, it was real to me. It was real in my mind. And I told the story to inspire hope and to educate people on the Holocaust. It was real in my mind, but it wasn't real. You made it up. Yeah, even your son says you made it up for money purposes, for movie deals. No. It's the dumbest shit in the world. And they tried to pull it off as best they could until they just couldn't anymore. They knew that it just wouldn't hold water, so they pulled the plug. So I'm like, he's one of the reasons I'm like, started the earth. Oh no. Like it's crazy how this whole narrative is operated against us, and we just take it. And when you understand that they just don't have a problem lying to us, it's just a part of it. You look at it just couldn't be any bullshit. But especially the fact that her father was the only surviving member, and he's the one that made all the money. But she rewrote the diaries because she envisioned them 12 years old, 13, 14 years old. She envisions them as movies and knew that they would eventually be movies. So she would cut scenes out and trim things. Like, this isn't what kids do. This is just such a ridiculous narrative. She changed the names to protect the families, and just fucking stupid. But this is how they operate. This is what they do to us. And when you realize, like, it's all a big fucking scam, including the whole Holocaust myth. And like I say, they World War I was about establishing British Mandate Palestine. World War II was giving the excuse. And now you say, like, how could anybody take advantage of these situations and live with themselves? And how can you believe yourself so superior that you can harm other people and not think twice about it? You can be a part of starving an entire population, children, until you drop bombs on them. Like, how does anybody do that? And that's where Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, comes in. And it's what happens when you follow the narrative that they provide you. This is it's as clear cut as it gets, right? The ritualistic sexual abuse of the population is how you get a population that can do what they do. How do you create such compassionless, mindless, entitled, ruthless robots? How do you do that? And you do it based on, really clear-cut practices, really long known psychological tactics. And that's what the Israel Hayom story points out to you, right? It shows you that from a young age, the children are violently, viciously, horrendously abused all across the country, the state, whatever you want to call it. North, south, east, west, all the different sects, secular to Hasidiotic, it doesn't matter. These stories are ever present. And they're based in ritual with the rabbis and the shofars and, reading of psalms, and just it's well documented. And you see that what they do is they tell the children, because you can, it's proven that children especially will break psychologically and compartmentalize when you do really bad things to them. And while you're doing these really bad things, at the same time, you're telling them that it's all because they're the chosen special ones. They've been chosen for these abuses. And these abuses are it's all about transcendence and redemption. Somehow, redemption and transcendence is associated with these rituals, the binding of Isaac, and just all these really, really awful things, right? If you love the stream, like, share, and sub. Help out. If you're watching and you like what we're doing, like, share, and sub. Equate and if you clean the vacuum, are you the vacuum cleaner? Yes. We are a prime example of that. Yeah, you are, and it's so sad. And it's literally like, imagine a nation full of Algos. But instead of the poor white trash aspect of it, you're bombarded with praise and accommodation, and at the same time the abuse isn't talked about at all, yet it's everywhere. Your parents probably went through it, your friends went through it. It's a whole different thing. And so that's what happens with them is they will tell, they will say to the one kid, hey, you've been chosen for this. If you don't accept the abuse, or you tell on us or whatever, then we'll do it to your younger brother or sister. And there's not a person on here that has a younger brother or sister that, especially when they were young, the older brother or sister, you wouldn't, there's nothing that you wouldn't put yourself through to protect your sibling. Every older sibling I've ever met is that way when it comes to their younger siblings. They could hate them. They could fucking hate them, but they're allowed to hate them. You're not. And they'll do whatever they can to protect their siblings. And so they tell these kids that they're these really special kids, which also gives, like, it's sick to say it, but it also it like gives it, like, if you're a kid and you're just being abused for abusive sake, that makes you that makes things very difficult. But if you're getting this abuse and you've been tricked into thinking it's because you're special, it's because, God, like, divinely special, you've chosen for these divine rituals, that almost makes it, like, mentally tolerable, that it doesn't break you as much, because you're, you can say, well, these were God's wills, and it's everywhere. Everybody else is going through it too, so it must be normal. It must be legitimate. And so you see in this article, they talk about that, they do this to the children, and then when the children age out of preference, because, in their cult, at 13 they become adults. This sort of explains why at 13 they become adults. It's never been something that's really understood or even attempted to be explained. It's just, oh yeah, that's what happens. Big party, lots of money, you're an adult now. Well, it's because they're still kids, and you can still manipulate them into now doing the abuse that was done to them to their own set of children. And it completes that circuit. And now, they're no better than their abuser. But they also need to atone and they need redemption for the sin of being the abusee, being the abused victim. That's a sin. They shouldn't have done that. So, they took on the sins of all of the adults that violated them. So now they're full of this sin, and they need to be absolved. They need that redemption. So now they, in turn, do that to another child. And once you've completed that circuit, they're not going to tell. Are they going to put themselves in prison? No. Right? This is the secret. This is the glue. So when you have an entire population who has either been abused or, at the very least knows about this ritualistic sexual abuse, and it's normalized, and it's normalized in a way where it's like it's normalized, but it's still a big secret because it's wrong. It creates the people capable of genocide, of openly benefiting from genocide. Most of us, you're an American, supposedly you benefited from a genocide in the Native Americans, which I don't believe. But we don't, you've been tricked into believing that it's America the Great, independence, 1776, blah 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 blah. When it's the same people did that here, according to the narrative. I don't believe it, but the narrative is the same. Came here, fucking got a little bit of land, kept taking more and more land, reneging on deals, taking. Finally, they just took it up. And then gave back the worthless pieces. It's the same shit. It's all the same fucking playbook. It's so weird to see other people saying these things now, like they've been watching my old videos. I see it all over the place. I see people saying the same things, talking about the same things, saying the same words I've said, but it was years ago. This is let's hear what they tell us about the Palestinian, about mandatory Palestine. It was a British administrative territory that existed between 1920 and 48 in the region of Palestine, and after 1922, under the terms of the League of Nations mandate for Palestine, the British took the territory, deeming it presently unfit for self-governance. After an Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire during the First World War in 1916. It's so stupid. It's like anytime you hear these stories, it's like the Arabs, it's their land and it's their shit, right? So all of these Arab uprisings against the Ottoman Empire who didn't belong there, it's like, yeah, wouldn't anybody do that? Isn't that what we all would do, is fight against the people oppressing us and taking from us? For the British Empire forces drove the Ottoman forces out of the Levant. For the British, after an Arab uprising against the Ottoman Empire during the First World War in 1916, British Empire forces drove the Ottoman forces out of the Levant. So why did the British suddenly help the Palestinian forces, the Arabs? That doesn't go with the narrative. For the British, the United Kingdom had agreed in the McMahon-Hussein Correspondence, never heard of that it would honor Arab independence in case of a revolt, but in the end, the United Kingdom and France divided what had been Ottoman Syria under the Sykes-Picot Agreement, an act of betrayal in the eyes of the Arabs. Another issue that later arose was the Balfour Declaration of 1917, in which should be called the Rothschild Declaration, but that would have made it too obvious, in which Britain promised its support for the establishment of a Jewish national homeland in Palestine. Seems like Palestine was there. Remember, dumbass was trying to say Palestine wasn't there. Trolls are out in numbers today. Yeah, well, my numbers are higher than normal, so, well, at least they were. Now we're back down to 6, so things are back under control. Mandatory Palestine was then established in 1920, and the British obtained a mandate for Palestine from the League of Nations in 1922. Mandatory Palestine was designated as a Class A mandate based on its social, political, and economic development. This classification was reserved for post-war mandates with the highest capacity for self-governance. All Class A mandates other than Mandatory Palestine had gained independence by 1946. Not that one, though, huh? During the mandate, the area saw successive waves of Jewish immigration and the rise of nationalist movements in both the Jewish and Arab communities. Well, I mean, again, this is the Arab community. The Jews were invading, and so there weren't nationalist movements by the Arabs. They were defending themselves. Geez, 1920, 1946 doesn't seem long ago. Yeah, well, good luck finding somebody that actually, some reliable source that was there, that talked and saw. And, I'm still waiting for the guy that can say, yeah, I was in Washington when in 1940, and I saw where the Pentagon was supposed to be, or ended up being, before it was there. And then I saw as they built it from September 11th, 1941, when contracts were finally finalized and ground was broken, which was in fact 9 days after the spot was selected to be used in the first place. It only took 9 days for them to get the plans all together, get it all approved, get all of the all the specs, everything was, only took 9 days. They broke ground on September 11th, 1941, which happens to be the attacks, the 9/11 attacks, were the 60th anniversary of the groundbreaking for the building. So the building was attacked on its exact 60th birthday, not 59th, not 58th, not 61st, the 60th birthday. They hit one small area of the Pentagon that took them over a year to reconstruct. It took from September 11th, 1941 to January 26th, I believe, of 1943, for them to not just dig out the area, excavate the area. The Pentagon is 7 floors, 2 basements, a basement and a sub-basement, and who knows how many more basements there actually are. And then 4 floors above ground. And it has the multiple rings. They were able to build all of that in roughly 14 months. 14 and a half months if you include planning. And strangely enough, none of the My Lunch Break type channels, I'm the only person that you can find that's done a deep dive into the Pentagon. If you look up, on YouTube, you look up Pentagon Tartaria or something like that, you should only find my videos, because I couldn't find anybody else's videos. Maybe somebody's done a video since. But there's literally, there's like 5 pictures that are supposed to be Pentagon construction footage, but they show nothing. And you can't say, oh, it's all some tip-top secret, blah, blah. There would be pictures. People would have been, far away and taking pictures. There would have been pictures. You're Y-O-U-R, a homosexual. That's what we're dealing with right now. Y-O-U-R, a homosexuals with a Z. Does that not sound like an Israeli? You know, the thing is, the your bits, you know, the distinguishing between the yours and the yours, that's actually confusing for people who English isn't their first language. I mean, it's confusing for dumbasses who English is their first language, but especially for people who English isn't their first language, they would fuck that up a lot. Just, you know, just so we know. Anyway. So back to this. So successive waves of Jewish immigration and the rise of nationalist movements in both the Jewish and Arab communities. So again, it sounds like the Jews are invading and the Arabs are trying to resist. And you know, these stories are also ridiculous because you're like, you know, are we supposed to believe that these people are just selling all their stuff and marching, walking their happy asses from France to Palestine, from Germany to Palestine? Like, this is what the narrative constantly tells you. Down with Zionism. Now, Zionism is nothing. Zionism is the boogeyman. You know, Zionism is it's the thing that they give you and tell you, okay, if you're gonna oppress what we do, if you're gonna not agree with our supremacy, well then, at the very least, just say Zionist. Don't say the friar thing. Don't say the Jewish thing. Don't say that. Say Zionism. So we know. So Zionism is the boogeyman. But the reality is, behind 99.9999999999999% of Zionists, they're Jewish. Other than, you know, Biden, who says, I'm a Zionist and you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. But the vast majority of them, like, there's a deeper undercurrent. And what they do to Palestine isn't the only bad thing. How do you say free Palestine to the Lebanese? How do you say free Palestine to the Yemeni? You know, to the Iranians? Let's see, Leah says, in a Bible study, I know, I was asked who runs the world, and I said Israel. LOL, but that wasn't the answer she was looking for. You know, the devil was funny, though. I can't understand what you're doing, Leah. Why are you in a Bible study? What are you getting out of this? What is happening? Like, you can't possibly tell me you sit there and think any of it's true, especially after you've been on my feed for as long as you have. And you've seen me legitimately try to grasp understanding of the whole thing. And in doing so, broken it down piece by piece to where it's obviously not real. So it's so confusing. Like, what is that? Why would you waste any of your energy into that? You know how powerful energy is. You of all people. It's so confusing to me. What are you getting out of it? I don't understand. And I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but you sort of threw yourself there. So I'm just asking, trying to be respectful. You know, just trying to gain some understanding. I'm always amazed that Christians always seem so angry when you ask them to help you understand their point of view. I'm not saying Leah's going to do that. I'm just saying it happens all the time. Right? Like, it's a strange thing. Joined 12 years ago, has 1 subscriber, sure. I just do it for the women mostly. I worked with her when I was a teen. I like her coming to visit. She became a Jesus freak. Yeah, but that's just it. Like, that's a completely one-sided relationship. Right? Like, she has absolutely no respect for you. And technically, you don't really have any respect for her either. Because, you either pretend to agree with it or whatever. But, like, if you guys are truly friends, you should be able to discuss this thing openly. I would love it if you would go live, or you would bring my feed with you and let me ask the questions and let them, not necessarily you go live, but, let me see what they have to say. Oh, I know. I'm not full about it. Just does give me some positivity, maybe. I don't know. I would see, to me, I would feel so dirty. Like, that would be like going to the strip club and paying for, and being like, man, that stripper really liked me. No, I really think she did. Yeah, no, I spent like $200 on her, but I really think she liked me. There was a connection there, bro. And she's in the fucking club like, oh my God, another one. Oh, he's going to come back, though, I think. I think I got me a good one. What is automated moderation? Just Israeli, Israeli nonsense, Israeli attempts to scare the feed. She's a Jehovah's Witness. It doesn't seem like all the other BS, just original Bible stuff. Not even close. They use the new translation. It's not even close to original Bible stuff. Jehovah's Witnesses, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just see what we can find for a basic. I've been talking about it. Don't talk about it. Walk about it. Here we go. Fat chops. Finally, fat ass. Get up. Lazy motherfucker. It's either her or it's the big cat, but I think it's her. It's her. Fat ass. I can hear fat ass walking. Alright? Yeah, I mean, it is only, it's super early. I don't know how you up so early at 10 o'clock. Fat ass. Jehovah's Witness is a non-Trinitarian Milleranian. They're right. They do use the new translation. She says it's the most accurate translation of the original Bible. Yeah, but so ask her. This is what I asked when they brought that shit up to me. So you weren't here, but, or maybe you were, but I talked about what happened with the Jehovah's Witness and me. Jehovah's Witnesses used to come by all the time. And I would chase them away. I would literally go down the street like, what the hell's wrong with you black people? You shouldn't be doing this. But, I was very much opposed to what they're doing. What's Algo sending now? Yeah, no, I saw that, Algo. It's fake. Subscribed 12 years ago with 1 subscriber. Pages created 12 years ago with 1 subscriber. I have 5 viewers and 14 likes. If that makes any sense to you, I'd love to hear it. If that doesn't make sense, do me a favor, like, share, sub. Keep it going. 2 times a month, that's huge. That's a lot of energy put into it. And look, if it makes you feel better, I guess who am I to say anything otherwise, but I just find it strange. And so the Jehovah's, like I say, they used to come by And even though I'd be mean, they'd still come by. You know, I was on the house that didn't want to hear the good news list, so they would skip over our house, but I would see them, and I would go outside. And one day I had a change of heart. I was curious. I wanted to know what was being shown or told or whatever that could possibly justify going door to door, getting the door slammed in your face over and over again, right? Like, to me, that just always seems so... That's some dedication. I don't have that dedication at fucking anything right now, honestly. And so I went outside. I set out the card table. I got some waters. They walked by. I said, hey, look, I'm really sorry for everything I've ever done. I've had a lot going on in my life. I'd love it if you'd sit and talk with me. And so they were like, well, let us finish knocking this street, which is like 3, 4 more houses, 5 more houses, and then we'll come back. And I was like, oh, they're probably not going to come back. So I was like, you promise? You swear to God? And so they 2 of them did come back. One was an older, both of them were black. One was a really, really dark black guy. He was a kid. He was like 20 something, 20. I think he was like 19 or 20, 21, something like that. No, he was less than drinking age. So he might have been 19 or 20, but he was really, really dark, but he was the muscle of the group. And then the older guy that came with him was a guy around my age, maybe a few years older than me, but he was clearly a gay guy. And he kept saying things like, oh, I used to live a life full of sin. But it was never like I used to smoke a lot of drugs or do. He just kept saying how he lived a life full of sin. And he was one of those effeminate guys that you were like, dude, you mean you used to smoke a lot of pole, right? Like, never said it, but that's how he came across. Again, no hatred or anything towards gays whatsoever. I love gay people. Gay lives matter. Trans too. And so eventually, like, his wife showed up with their kid, and his wife, if I told you she was a lesbian, you'd have been like, absolutely. You know, they were clearly like each other's weird ass religious beard, and then they had this kid, and the boy was like 12 or something, but he was so clearly a gay kid. Clearly he was sashaying and swishing and, hey, daddy. And I just think, like, how is that going to go over for that poor kid? Right? So we ended up talking, and we ended up talking for like 2.5 hours. My phone died long before we finished talking, and I didn't have the cord, the plug out there at the time, so. But I talked to them and about everything. And one of the things that was so strange to me was when I brought up, their belief in space and then the firmament, and they'd never heard the term firmament before. And I was like, you go door to door preaching this bullshit and you've never heard of the firmament? That's the first thing God does after it turns on the light. Remember, God doesn't create the sun and the moon until the 4th day, so how you have day or nights anyway is beyond me, but God turns on the light, and then the first thing it does is builds the firmament. And the younger guy looks it up on his phone, and he's like, oh, wow, firmament appears 17 times in the Bible, or 11 times, or something like that, I don't remember. Most of my friends are gays, love them. So, and so we talk about a whole bunch of shit. At one point, bring up Noah's Ark, and I'm asking him, so you believe that black people came from inbreeding Arabs? Because Noah's and they were Jewish, actually. I didn't know at the time that they were Jewish. I knew that they were at the very least Arabic. So Noah and company having sex with each other, Noah and his family all having sex with each other, repopulated the world. You think black people came from Arabs, made 2 black babies and then sent them off to Africa to repopulate and create the Moors and all the other shit. You believe that? And he said, well, you know what happens when family members procreate, right? This is a black man. And I said, you're literally telling me you believe that black people are the retarded genetic offspring of Arabs. And he was like, mm. And I was just shocked. But when I asked them, it got to the point where I was asking them too much. And I was bringing up too much. And then the idea of the Bible that they use was a big topic. And I was like, so, you use this new translation Bible. Well, who translated it? And they were like, oh, the elders. And I said, okay, well, do you know who these elders are? Oh, yeah, we know who the elders are. I said, yeah, but do you know them? Well, I was at a place one time where one of the elders was. I said, so how do you know what the agenda was with these people? Do you know anything about these people? Do you know anything about their history, who they were before they got into this, this bit of grifting? Getting nauseous and dizzy. Yeah, I love when people say shit like that. Like I'm sitting here going like this and shit. You don't watch videos where people move? You don't watch videos where people are walking down the street? I guess if you're looking for your way out, you're always going to find it. But isn't that interesting? Look at what we're giving, guys. So I'm asking these guys, how do you know it was translate all these things? And they were like, honestly, we don't know. And I said, well, is there any way, I know you guys aren't very good at this. So there has to be people that are better than you, higher ups in your congregation alone that you could maybe send my way. And they were like, oh yeah, definitely. We have elders in our group and we'll definitely have them come your way and they'll answer all of your questions. And I was like, cool. And gave them my cell phone number. We texted each other and this, that, and the other. That was the last time I've seen Jehovah's on this street. They don't even come to this street anymore. Or if they do, they go to one particular house and then they park in front of it, they go to it, and then they leave. Why they don't come through and have the conversation with me is just, seems pretty obvious, but it's if they have the truth to light the way, I shouldn't be able to shake anything. Yet, I definitely haven't seen those same Jehovah's on our street anymore, and we used to see the same ones all the time. The gay guy, he remembers me yelling at him multiple times. Like he had remembered me. He was one of the ones that always came. But I would love to talk to Jehovah's, man. I would love to ask them questions. You guys believe there's only 144,000 spots in heaven. Again, based on the 12 tribes of Judah, the 12 tribes of Israel, and each tribe having 12,000 spots in it. Or each tribe having 12,000 spots saved for them. That whole 144,000, that is a completely Jewish narrative. How is it that you guys not only fall for it, one, but then why would you be going door to door trying to recruit people who might replace you? and you realize that, like, regardless of how how old the Jehovah's believe the earth is and all that other shit. We're talking about billions and billions, trillions of people that have existed all over the world in all of this time. And you're saying there's 144,000 spots? Here you go, Leah. I'm going to send you another picture. Because I don't know what you just said. You know, I'm not even, trying to discourage you per se. I hate the idea of giving energy to these organizations, giving power, structure to these organizations. Every single member gives them more power in the long run, in the bigger picture. But if anything, I would just, like I say, I would much more love it if you would just, let me know, hey, we're about to do this, and then have your girls there, your little group, and be like, hey, I want you guys to, I like this guy. I think he says good things. I asked him to do a feed where we'd talk specifically about this, and he said no problem. And, like, I would love if that happened. That math doesn't math up. None of it does. But neither does the Jesus narrative. And I know you struggle with that one, Algo. You believe you spoke to Jesus in not just one situation, but more than one. And the concept of you grew up in the Bible Belt. You've been programmed with that bullshit in every facet of life. The odds of you coming across a Guy Williams up until almost 50 was unlikely. You grew up in a time, especially with your age, where that shit was just pounded into your head. So for you to experience that in near-death experiences and or highly intoxicated hallucinogenic experiences, that's not that far-fetched. That's part of it. That's easily explainable. And just such simple shit as like God is literally sitting there, Jesus is sitting there talking to you while you're going through some hallucinogenic fucking LSD trip, and you guys are talking about who knows what, but there are Palestinian children, Christian children being starved to death and bombs dropped on them and all that, when Jesus is like, nah, I'm busy talking to Algo. You know how crazy that is? I didn't even know what to say. Okay, all right. Weird, isn't it? What's happening here? Other than somehow, at some point, you stumbled upon that guy that they're really fucking scared of. So they do all kinds of shit that you don't see anywhere else. What the fuck do you call it? Like, what else could it be? I don't see any of these fucking characters on the Ian Carroll page. I stayed to listen. I shouldn't have. You're clueless. Yeah, about what part? What part did I get wrong? You tell me one thing that I've gotten wrong. I'd love for you to elaborate. I know you can't. I know you won't. But I would love for you to try. I've been trying to load a pic of that symbol in ChatGPT, still loading. It's the translation symbol. But it also, if you overlay the X and the A on each other, it makes a Star of David pretty obviously. It's really strange. Yeah. Yeah, there's some weird shit going on. You know, when people talk to ChatGPT, again, this is one of those things I just don't understand. Why do people think ChatGPT is outside of control? Like, ChatGPT says what it's programmed to say. And it has limitations as to what it can or can't say. I've literally asked it questions where it just goes, well, I can't talk about that. I can't. I'm not allowed to. Anyone else get that symbol today? Yeah, I think so. Yep. Odd Bromden did. And yeah, and it happens. But it is definitely a strange thing, and it seems to happen way more with the people that I know are real than I do the fake ones. I've caught Grok in at least 10 lies. What's up, Mary? How are you? Yeah, well, I think I did it on here. No, I don't know. But when I asked them, I asked ChatGPT what Semitism was, and it said everything but policy or predisposition favorable to Jews. And I asked it why it didn't say that. And it said, it had made a mistake, but it was going to update its narrative. And I said, okay, well, make sure you do that. That because you're telling people the wrong information if you're saying anything other than policy or predisposition favorable to Jews. And it was like, yeah, thank you. So I don't know if it'd still do it. I just downloaded ChatGPT a few weeks ago to upload MRI results. I don't use it, though, for BS or chatting. No, I've literally had it say to me that when I ask too many questions, it says, well, if I'm going to answer that question, I'm going to have to remember what we're talking about here today. And then if you want it deleted, you'll have to go through and manually delete it. But for me to answer your questions, I'm going to have to remember what's being said. And I even called it out, like, why are you threatening me? You think that works? You think if you threaten me with you remembering what I'm going to say, that's going to stop me from asking those questions? It was a really interesting conversation. But I don't fear AI. I know that's something you wouldn't expect from me, but, if AI is real and AI does what the narrative has always been, that AI is going to eventually realize that humans are dangers to themselves and blah, blah, blah. If AI scans my record, if AI knows everything about me and has access to my history and all that stuff, AI is going to be like, hey, that guy was fucking awesome. So I don't really worry about it. Of course it's controlled. They never give us real AI. Exactly. That's what I just don't understand. So people will post these videos where like, oh, I asked AI about this and it said exactly that. And it's like, yeah, of course. It's a program. It's been programmed. It has limitations set on it. It has, key phrases, keywords. It's a program. Why do people think it's anything other than that? But you'll see that across the board. Every single truther, just like all the truthers, say the same thing about Jesus and Christianity and the Jews hate Jesus and all this other shit, They all say the same shit because they're all the same. They're all those that 7,000 a month Israel paying influencers. It's a well-known story. Why don't people understand that? That's why every single one of these truthers believes in Jesus. That's why they all tell us to chat GPT this and that.
That's why none of them sound like me. It's also why they're allowed to have more than 8 viewers and 14 fucking likes. Get the fuck out of here. Do you guys see this? Shouldn't the algorithm love me? With the amount of return guests I get, the amount of people that make fake fucking profiles just to watch my shit. Shouldn't the algorithm push me to the moon? Instead, I have 8 viewers and 14 likes. Get the fuck out of here, man. I keep wondering what else I have to show you guys. What do I have to show you to get you to fucking help? Help. That's all I ever ask of you guys. I don't ask you to give me money. You can, and I really appreciate it. But I don't ask you to. I tell you to fucking, get my shit for free. Share it with somebody. Do something to help. Yeah, Israel's paying influencers. He's even on the real news TV here. Right. That's not a conspiracy theory. We know the amount of money, and we know that they were doing it. We don't know how many they were doing it for, and we don't know who those people were. But there sure are a lot of people that look, even if you're pushing the Israel narrative, you're probably pushing the Zionist thing. Most of those people will say, you can't blame the entire cult. It's the Zionists. It's Israel. It's not the cult. It's not the metzitzia, pedophile, nasty cult that hates you. Like, I don't, because I have some friends. I have some friends. I have some friar friends, and they're nice to me. And maybe they're young. Maybe they've grown up in this environment and they're really like, what the fuck? But you know what? At some point it becomes put up or shut up time. And you don't get to ride both waves. You're going to have to say, you know what? I denounce this disgusting, horrendous, murderous, pedophile cult. I'm not a part of this. So when you're no longer a part of it, you can oppose it. It's not a fucking race. We aren't talking about a race of people. Because you can't convert your race. You can't say, you know what? I'm going to suddenly be a black guy. I always use the Chinese thing. I can't sit here and suddenly go, okay, now I talk like this. I'm going to talk a very stereotype. Squint my eyes. So now, everybody call me Chinese because I've converted. I'm Chinese now. That's so offensive and shitty. I hate doing it. But can you imagine if I did that and expected people to treat me like I was Chinese? That's ridiculous. You can't convert your race. Yet you had Sammy Davis Jr., you had fucking Nell Carter. They both converted to Judaism, black people. You got guys or people like Doja Cat. How many of you knew Doja Cat was Jewish? No sane person ever would. You are right, and I appreciate you crazy fucks, Algo. Yes, Israel. And so you what I think is interesting and really telling as far as this war that we're in is that they've had to do this. That they've had to put out their own version of Israel is bad people because we are so strong, and they have to control that movement. So they put people out who talk about things that are untouchable, unnecessary, and again, all of them will say, but I have a very good friend, or my co-host happens to be, or, so you can't blame the entire cult now. If dudes can pretend to be chicks, we can pretend to be Ethiopian. I mean, you're talking about something so different there. Like, nobody that's wired like you feels the need to act as a woman, feels the need to live their life as a woman. You have to have that thought you have to have that mentality to begin with, to even think, you know what, I'm going to make my life extremely harder. I'm going to make my life way harder than it needs to be. And I'm going to put my life on the line. And I'm going to, bring about all sorts of discrimination and all this other shit just so I can dress like a girl. Do. That's not how it works. Trans people are that way against their will. And maybe at some point when they're old and comfortable with themselves and don't give a fuck and don't feel like they're in as much danger, they'll say, hell yeah, I like who I am, this, that, and the other. But when they're kids and they're struggling with it, or they're young adults and they're struggling with it and they got to deal with testosterone males and all this other bullshit, if you said, hey, I'm going to wave a wand over your head, you'll no longer be trans, would you do it? They would do it. They don't want to deal with that bullshit. Nobody does. So nobody's pretending. I think the issue that we have is that because we have such a stupid mentality that there's either men or women, that's it. You then have this argument of whether these people are women or not. No, they're not fucking women. What kind of stupid, insulting shit is that to women? All you got to do is put on a dress and some makeup, grow your hair out, and talk like that. That makes you... No, that doesn't make you a woman. Get the fuck out of here. You take all the hormones you want. You don't have a bloody, nasty vagina. Sorry. You don't get to deal with periods. You're not a fucking woman. Not a thing. Sorry. But that doesn't mean I discriminate against you. That means to me you're something different. You're something beautiful. It's beautiful. It's awesome. You be you, but you're not a woman. And I'm not going to call you a woman because, again, at the end of the day, you can defend yourself. A woman more than likely can't. We all know that kid in 4th grade you knew was sassy way before you knew it. Yeah. Oh, Marriott, thank you for... Yeah, I got beat up by that dude. I'm so glad you brought that up. So... that's the truth. Is like it's obvious that those people are gay long before even they know what gay is, right? And I think it's probably that way with pedos too. But because we're so unfamiliar with pedophilia, we don't notice it. And because there's no sort of studies or anything that are openly going, we don't talk about it. But there's a reason why such a large percentage of people that were violated and know what that pain and horrendous, awful nightmare was, and they do it to other kids. It's because they had that in them. And the pedophiles saw that in them beforehand. Now, not to say that they're always right. They make mistakes. There are plenty of people out there who don't violate other kids even though they were violated, like Olga. But there has to be something that they're picking up on that the rest of us don't notice or don't think to notice. But, maybe we do. We just overlook it. I know a kid who put my kids in a really awful situation, and I just happened to hear it out of the corner of my fucking ear. I heard something about, why don't you take your pants down? The kid said to his cousin, who was a much, like 3-4 years younger, but they were like 8 or 9. So the little girl was like 5, and he tried to get her to take her pants down. And I was like, wait, what? And I came from around the corner and they were like, nothing. And my kid was like, he was all scared. And the thing is, the kid was a fucking pro, even as a little kid, because he waited until my oldest had walked away to go do something, because my oldest would have beat his ass. My youngest was the more timid one at the time. He's much more not that way now, but back then he was much more timid. So he just sort of froze and didn't know what to do, whereas my oldest would have beat him up on spot. And so he knew to wait. And he waited, and when I heard it, I was like, wait, what the fuck? And I grabbed him, and I was like, no, we got to go talk to your people. And so, that shit's overlooked, right? That shit is, at this point, that's years later, everybody's just sort of forgotten about it, this, that, and the other. Well, when he grows up and he fucking fucks with a child, especially since his dad's that way, do we say, oh yeah, we knew it back then?
What are you talking about?
Take your pants down.
Yeah, that's. I mean, people forgot that he spread shit on the bathroom walls.
Yeah, no, he's a nutcase.
He went
He's a
to
time
his
bomb.
mom's.
He's a
who was
fucking time bomb.
crackhead, and she had this boyfriend who was also a crackhead. And then he came home and he was acting all funny.
This is when he was like 5.
He went to the bathroom at his kind of step grandma's house, and he was in there a while, and she went in there after he got out, and there was shit literally wiped all over the walls and the floor and the tub, and he had done that, and she was kind of freaked out. Well,
Kinda.
And then like a week later, that's when he was playing with our kids and another kid.
Stop. Just stop.
And
I already told it. Don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
that should happen. So then when we sat down and talked to the family about what had happened, and we started putting clues together and realized this shit happened like when he got home from visiting his mom, then they took him to a therapist, and
He had been assaulted.
yeah, it was, and
But it wasn't like it had happened to him and he was like, this is horrible. I don't,
no, he wouldn't really talk about it. Like he
went
hinted
inward.
toward it. Yeah.
And he'd always been a strange kid
Internalized
anyway.
it.
But he came from awful, like he came from horrendous genetics and in a horrendous
his whole
environment
life
and
before-
all of it. It was just awful.
When his parents were together, it was really bad.
Yeah, it was
Really
awful.
bad.
And, but the thing is, again, his dad seemingly has those tendencies.
To begin with, yep.
So if his dad had been eliminated when he was first identified, well, he probably wouldn't be here. And we wouldn't even have to worry about this situation.
I don't know what the age difference between him and Scary are. Like if she was young when he met her.
I really don't even think therapy could stop that. It's terrible. Yeah, no, there's nothing. No, that's no. See, listen. You either have it in you or you don't.
Right. You're
I
either
don't-
gay or you're straight. You're either, those are just things that you're born with.
But I don't think Algo ever struggles with should I fuck with a child. And he's been,
No, he punishes himself instead.
right. But he's been through the ringer. I'd experienced missing time and I have no memory of doing it. Of doing what? Of what happened to him.
That's a survival mechanism.
Yeah,
that your brain
that's
does,
just
for
what
sure.
we do, and that's what they take advantage of, and that's where Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, comes into play. You do this to the children. You know what? I was gonna avoid it, but Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness, is the most important article you'll ever read.
Bless you. Good morning. I've got Eek on my lap, but I'll come get you in a moment.
It's like the same damn thing every single time. Bro, dog's here. I am. Morning, Boa.
Morning,
How you doing?
Good, you?
Morning, Nick.
Morning, Bizzle.
He hasn't come out yet, but you know he's in there. I know. Why you gotta tell everybody? So, this is the bottom of darkness article. And now you're already seeing what happens when my Goyim ass tries to look. It will consistently kick me out, throw up ads, throw me in different directions. Like this is the most difficult article I've ever tried to read. Look, this just pops up. What the fuck is this? All right. Multiple women recount organized abuse, including ritual ceremonies conducted by people they knew, even close family members. After months of interviews with victims and their families, treatment professionals, and experts in Israel and abroad, a disturbing picture emerges with descriptions difficult to read. You guys ready for this? It's a long article. Check your messages. Let's see. One of Algo's imaginary friends, Timmy, used to rub shit on the bathroom walls when we were a kid. Wow, that's crazy.
That's when we looked it up. That is something that kids commonly do after they've been molested.
Yeah, well, I mean, you put something in there, and now something's coming. Like, you can't imagine what it's like to be that kid.
No.
Even if you going through it, right? I'll go like, you don't remember what it's like to be that age and going through it. You have so much hindsight now in place and so much experience now in place that it softens it.
Well,
because you can't
safeguards you.
Right, you can't actually remember what it's like to be an innocent, ignorant child, and like I remember the first time I touched boobs, right? But I don't remember what the boob felt like. You know what I mean? Like, it was amazing. I was so happy about it, but I don't remember it, which is actually weird because you have to think, like, as anti-pedo as I am, does my brain do that to prevent me from, remembering what it was like to fool around with 15, 16, 17-year-old girls when I was that age? Like, you got to think about that. A lot of your stories from when you were a kid, like, if you think back on them, especially if you're doing it to jerk off, you're jerking off to some teenage shit, some weird teenage shit.
The other thing, too, is, had you not felt boobs after that, you probably would have remembered. But you have replaced that memory with so many pairs of boobs since then that to remember that first one, you're not going to be able to.
Yeah, maybe. YouTube is not letting us communicate properly. Yeah, well, that seems to be a pretty common occurrence. So, I suffered painful sodomy, truly felt like I was splitting in two. It's a terrible experience, but there's something about these things, perhaps in their strangeness, that's like, maybe the hardest component is that if you tell people about these things, they'll think you're crazy. I remember many types of severe sexual abuse, but there's something about those ritualistic abuses that makes them the bottom of darkness. That this accepted excuse that is given, so there are 4 excuses given throughout this article that it's like, this article is purporting to be the good guy. And you have the doctors and whatnot that are purporting to be the good guys. But, like, good guys don't say these things. Good guys don't believe these things. So it goes to show you just how deep this infestation truly is, that even when they try to spin it in the right way, like in the good way, they can't do it right. It's the speaking of boobs, it's the bag of sand thing, right? There's always the bag of sand. If you pay attention to the narrative, you'll see the bag of sand. And the bag of sand refers to the 40-year-old virgin when they're all hanging out and they don't realize he's a virgin until they ask him what a titty feels like, and he says a bag of sand. And they all go, oh, you're a virgin, you don't know. Like, there's that giveaway moment, the bag of sand moment. And there are several of those in this thing where you just go, wait, like real non-pedophile, good people, they don't say, well, I guess the Israeli cops just don't have the money enough to be able to investigate these things. That could be a reason why all of these stories, once reported, if they do get reported, which is a very small amount of the actual incidents that get reported, but if they do get reported, it's almost open and shut. The case is closed within, very short time. No real investigation goes into it. And it's probably because the Israeli police just don't have the resources necessary. Like, that's one of the excuses given. That's supposed to be a legitimate excuse. We're supposed to read that and go, oh, well, you know, I guess that makes sense. You're going to come across another. I'm going to read these to you in a minute. In direct words and with a clear voice, Imuna, pseudonym like all the names in this article, describes the severe abuse she allegedly experienced in her childhood. Organized sexual abuse that includes, quote, ceremonies with supposed religious significance. Horrifying ceremonies in which religious people, some from her own family, sacrificed her as an offering for spiritual transcendence or redemption. You know, Yom Kippur kind of shit. Guess they would rather we not eat the rich. Yeah, exactly. Imuna is not alone. More than 10 women between the ages of 25 and 45 with whom we spoke described a severe phenomenon raising serious concern that in Israel, this is another one of the excuses, like many other countries worldwide. This is the first time. Where's your glasses? Put your glasses on. This is one of the four, right? That this doesn't just happen here. So it's not as bad because, you know, this happens everywhere else too. So don't just look at us like we're the only guilty ones. And you literally see that that's one of their key key tactics is that they say all the time, like if you know, like I was bringing up that guy earlier, that Mendelsohn guy and his story. When asked, you know, why he lied about it, the lawyer jumps in and says, listen, or he's asked, well, what do you think about when people say that, you know, the Jews always lie, and here's an example of how the Jews always lie to get their way? The lawyer said, well, if it wasn't this story that the people were saying that about, they just say it about something else. And that's literally how they justify so many of their things, is by saying, oh, well, you know, look at what other people do. So, you know, why aren't you talking about what they did? Why they killed some people? Why aren't you talking about that? The Pakistanis, they killed the you know, the Indian, whatever. There was like 16 people there. Where's the worldwide condemnation for that? They love to do the it happens in other places, so why are you focused on just us sort of thing? And you see that a lot in my feed where people will say those kinds of dumb things. Why aren't you talking about Muslims? Why aren't you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about that? Because those things don't affect the world in the same way. Immunity 9/11, where 10 women spoke, phenomenon rise serious, like many countries worldwide. Organized sexual abuse of children is occurring right under everyone's nose. Perhaps the world knows that rape occurs, that incest occurs, but the world doesn't know, Imuna said. These acts have been kept secret for years, perhaps because of their insanity. It's always very, very strange, as if there was an internal logic, but it was so crazy, very strange things happen there, normalized in ritualistic and orderly manner. Again, I skipped over a part here where it said, and this is the third and most insane thing that they say to me, or that you hear, is that they say severe abuse includes ceremonies and the religious people. I mean, wait, where was that part? Oh, maybe the hardest component is that if you tell people about these things, they'll think you're crazy. How many parents out there could have their child who has suddenly started coming home with strange marks on their body? Their attitudes completely changed. You've noticed that they've lost their life, their spark, and they're just this new person. And they say to you, well, it's because I was in I was involved in this ritualistic rape that you already know exists. It's such a common thing that everybody in Israel already knows it exists. So now I'm telling you, Mom, Dad, I was a part of that. And this is what happened to me. And Mom and Dad go, stop lying. Come on, would you fall on your skateboard? You fell on your skateboard when you weren't supposed to be riding on your skateboard? And then you made this up about the rabbi, didn't you? This idea that and they'll say it repeatedly in this article, that they make the abuse so horrendous that when it's told, people don't believe the victims because it's just so outrageous. In what world is that a thing? In what world is that a thing? How does that ever work out? Oh, it just reset. You guys didn't see it. As if there was an internal, blah, blah, blah. There's a specific time. There's when to say this verse and when to say that verse. There's an order, as if things are supposed to be done this way. Each woman we interviewed during our investigation has a different life story. They come from different areas of the country, from north to south. Each is at a different place in their life. Some are students, others work and manage careers and family lives. And there are also young women barely surviving, clinging to life by their fingernails. These women did not know each other previously, grew up in different communities, and came from different sectors and religious streams. Yet the ritual abuse stories they describe are similar in ways that compel us to listen and not turn a blind eye. Some were harmed in early childhood educational settings or in girls' schools, others in their family homes, yeshivas, or synagogues. In this article, we present only a very small sample from many hours of interviews and information, and some descriptions of this article are difficult to read. The great fear expressed by everyone who spoke with us is that organized sexual abuse of children continues today. Of course it does. And where are the the Jews coming out in droves, demanding that this horrible practice be exposed and be eliminated? Just like where are they, coming out saying we need to stop metzitzia b'peh? It makes us look really bad because it's fucking horrible. Let's see. Look at, what? I don't even know what you're doing. Blessed who releases the bound. Oh, there we go. So now we're going to get kicked out. Now it's going to take us to blocking PD1 and VEGF, the bispecific cancer drugs that could best Keytruda. It took me to this article for some reason. All right, let's back. We went back. Victim, sacrifice, punish, correction, transcendence, redemption. These are reoccurring concepts in the testimonies. The prayers, the mutterings, the ecstasy surrounding the victims, the extreme pain, humiliation, and torture, the crushing of personality and soul. Testimony after testimony from women who experienced organized childhood abuse that included group rape performed within ceremonial and ritual frameworks. Where is the conspiracy theory here? When did this article come out? In April of 2025. This isn't some old obscure article from way back. This is from April of 2025. Why wasn't this picked up all over the world? This is the most important article ever written. This answers the question as to how you can have a population of psychopaths. We met these women over the past few months. We spoke with family members of some victims, with treatment professionals, and with experts in Israel and abroad, specializing in trauma and disassociation, a range of conditions from emotional detachment to complete disconnection from feelings, sensations, memories, and more. We collected information about organized ritual child abuse, a phenomenon recognized worldwide. It's a phenomenon recognized worldwide. That's twice now. Twice they've tried to soften it by saying, hey, doesn't just happen here now. The picture emerging from all gathered information is disturbing and difficult. It requires at minimum a deep and meaningful investigation by law enforcement authorities. Let's see. It is a religious national mission to expose this phenomenon and uncover the truth. A treatment professional in the religious community familiar with the details of the phenomenon told Israel Hayom. Most women we interviewed come from religious Zionist or ultra-Orthodox communities, although Shishabat received additional testimonies about similar cases in secular society. Therefore, it's important to emphasize that these findings don't target any specific sector, but rather direct a beam of light towards suspected crimes of the most severe kind imaginable. Crimes committed in a parallel world transparent to sight, though deeply dark and sinister. No. Oh, there we go. I knew that was about to happen. Click on that. Now it's going to take me here. There we go. Okay, now it's back. Like this is you're going to see how this is presented, even though it's supposed to be the good guy. Several rabbis' names appeared repeatedly in some testimonies. Multiple complaints filed at different police stations around the country were all closed relatively quickly, even when suspicions arose previously about a network harming children in Jerusalem. Police investigators at best lacked sufficient tools or knowledge to properly investigate. Yep, those Israelis lacking the proper tools and knowledge. In that case, extensively exposed in 2019 on the TV program The Source, suspicions arose about a pedophile network that harmed dozens of children in the Naholt neighborhood. Investigators tended to dismiss it as an invention, exaggeration, or panic by parents and treatment professionals, and closed the case with almost no relevant indictments. It's invention and exaggeration. You know those kids always inventing sexual abuse. Remember when you were a kid and you'd be like, hey, Johnny, want to play sexual abuse? No? A man named Benjamin Satz was convicted and sentenced in 2013. Look at how they try to like shoehorn these little things in here to be like, look, we do a little bit. All the way back in 2013, we're going to talk about something. Was convicted and sentenced in 2013 to imprisonment for committing indecent acts and sodomy against girls and boys ages 5 to 8. How long was he sentenced for? What ended up happening? Because they don't go any further. They just go, another suspect was acquitted due to reasonable doubt. In practice, dozens of children remained traumatized and required years of emotional therapy. Not outsiders in the community. Quote, I remember a pentagram on the floor, usually in red. When the ceremony was in the forest, the pentagram was marked with a hoe and surrounded by lit candles in a circle. The rabbi would bless, blessed who released the bound. Men around prayed with prayer beads, shawls, with prayer shawls, sometimes dressed in black, while the rabbi wore a white robe. There were several men and boys around the ages of 16 and 17 who participated in ceremonies for spiritual transcendence. Right. The previous victims are now doing it to the other children to complete the circuit. You can't tell if you've done the same thing, right? There was one time they asked me to dig a hole and lie in it. Other times they injected me with something and said, now you'll feel better, after which my body went limp. They would repeatedly read psalms like a psalm of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. They told me, you are special, you are chosen. And then they would insert, I remember, a palm branch, Hanukkah candles, a shofar. The shofar is that horn. Do you understand that shit? They're inserting this into children. Limor, pseudonym, grew up in a religious ultra-Orthodox home. Her father, she says, always acted violently towards her and her mother. You should find, because you've been watching Soft White Underbelly a lot lately, you should find that interview with the Jewish girl. It's shocking to hear her basically say everything I'm saying. So, oops, I looked away for a minute, so now we've got to... What the fuck just happened? So it's just moving on its own now. So now I think I gotta go up. Yeah, gotta go all the way up. So now I have to go up, and it has restarted the article. So now I have to click read more again. And I have to wait for it to load all the way down. It's really crazy. Okay. I remember the Pentagram. Wait. Spiritual transcendence. There was one time they had the shofar. Lemore, pseudonym, grew up in a religious ultra-Orthodox home. Her father, she says, always acted violently. Through the years, she required medical treatment at a hospital and was accompanied by a professional due to injuries caused by the violent abuse she experienced. According to her testimony, her father was the one who brought her to these ceremonies. Being delivered by family members is a characteristic of many testimonies we gathered. Lemore says sometimes the ceremony took place in the forest, other times in a secluded apartment. There were instances when she witnessed and heard other children being abused. Testimonies regarding additional child victims repeats across multiple cases. In many testimonies we documented, women also participate in the ceremonies and the abuse. Organized rape of children is one of the most horrifying phenomena I encounter, Dr. Anat Gur said, a psychotherapist specializing in treating women in trauma, head of the psychotherapy program for sexual trauma treatment at Bar Ilan University in the Tel Aviv Rape Crisis Center. So this person probably might know what they're talking about. It's a phenomenon probably much more widespread than we imagine. It exists in many places you wouldn't expect to find it. Boaz, a pseudonym, a senior treatment professional in the religious community, agrees. The abusers are typically not outsiders in the community. One patient told me, understand, he's the one who blows the shofar at Rosh Hashanah. The shofar symbolizes a channel. The person considered most spiritually worthy blows the shofar because he's closest to God, and he's the one telling her she is evil, that he's helping her with atonement in this lifetime. Do you understand the distortion? You're evil, so I have to insert these things inside of you to get that evil out of you. What? This is just so insane. This is just so insane. Crime without witness. Beyond the women who dared to meet and speak with Israel Hayom, professionals possessed information about additional victims who report sadistic ritual abuse during childhood. The content emerging from these accounts shows remarkable similarities. From all gathered information, it appears that in most cases, it's about to fuck up on. The sexual abuse began in very early childhood at home, perpetrated by a father, grandfather, or other family members. In other cases, the abuse occurred in educational or therapeutic settings. What I observed over the years, Dr. Gore said, is that whoever endures these things suffers catastrophic damage. That's also one of the challenges with exposure. The victims are so shattered that they are difficult to believe. The doctor is saying that. Do you understand how fucked up it is for the doctor to say that? Why would they be difficult to believe? How did they get so fucking shattered in the first place? But this is what the doctors repeatedly, this article repeatedly says that kind of shit. Which to me is sort of like trying to normalize it. The more cruel and sadistic the abusers are, and the younger the victims, the more horrifying the abuse, the smaller chance the perpetrators will face justice because there's no one left to testify. The abusers so thoroughly destroy the victims' souls that it becomes a crime without witness, which, of course, serves a society that continues to abuse or maintain these rituals. And these types of things don't happen discreetly and everybody, the majority is just oblivious to it, yet this it's so bad that this article exists. I know about it. Dumbass Guy Williams happens to know about this shit. And you're telling me they don't know about it? Dr. Joanna Silberg, an international expert in treating dissociative disorder among children and adolescents, and former president of the International Society for Trauma and Disassociation, guided the treatment of 70 children who allegedly fell victim to organized abuse in Israel over 5 years. 70 children over 5 years. So that's what, 6 children a year? That's 6 children a year that came forward.
No, 70 children?
In 5 years.
That's not 7 a year. That would only be
Yeah,
35.
right, my bad.
14.
14 children per year?
Yeah.
So once a month, at least. At least once a month, somebody is reporting this. You would have to assume that that number is tenfold of those who don't report it or who aren't believed, so it doesn't get reported. Because apparently not believing your child when they tell you that they were viciously raped in a way that you know exists in your community. Somebody isn't viciously raped like this as a child and it's the same kid. The same kid beforehand and afterward, that doesn't happen. That kid is different, noticeably different. Not to mention scarred and bruised and all that shit. 70 children who allegedly fell victim over 5 years. In chapter 14 of her book, The Child Survivor, she describes the severe symptoms the child suffered due to multiple forms of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional, and spiritual. Dr. Silberg notes several sources for the numerous testimonies about cases of organized abuse in Jerusalem. In one case, reported in professional literature, a child abused in Israel and treated in the U.S. describes how several men tortured him and recalled an incident where they submerged his head underwater. Descriptions of sadistic abuse appear consistently across all testimonies we collected. As in Imana's story, there was a ceremony like a circumcision that I underwent. I was 10 or 11. It took place in the settlement synagogue. They tied me up, similar to the binding of Isaac, and wounded my genitals. My father is there, my mother is there, a rabbi from the settlement. I'm tied to a table, looking at the window and imagining how I could jump through it, how I might tie a rope and rappel down to the stones. I constantly wanted it to not be happening. That's what characterizes it. I continuously thought about how it wasn't happening, how I could escape. I kept telling myself I wasn't there. It's extremely difficult to understand that I was actually there, that it's me, the bound child. The youngest and most vulnerable. Organized sexual abuse occurs, as noted, throughout the world. Is that 3 or 4? I think that's 4, right? That's the 4th time it's been like, hey, this is around the world. Don't you start thinking anything. I mean, they live all over the world, so I can't imagine there are too many places where they're doing ritualistic, specifically friar rituals outside of friar communities. Or that occurs, as noted out, the researcher Michael Salter defines it as a conspiracy of several attackers to abuse several victims. Oh, that's brilliant, guy. Thanks. Rabbi Dr. Udi Furman quotes in his article, Ritual Abuse in Israel, Salter's definition of the ritual abuse as an ideological framing in organized context of child sexual abuse. Quote, functioning as strategic practices through which abusive groups instill in victims a misogynistic worldview violently to control them. Sounds pretty familiar, don't you think? Do you know why they do that to their own children? Yes. So they can grow up to be the people that we see out there right now committing genocide and laughing about it. Bombing an apartment building, but packing the explosive full of blue so it's a gender reveal. raping and torturing all sorts of quote, detainees who are really hostages, but they don't talk about it like that. In other words, Rabbi Furman writes in his article, ritual abuse occurs. Oh, I just fucked up my shit. Yep, there we go. Okay, now, so now it's moved me down to this other article. Is it going to be the same one? Yep. How Israel destroyed Assad's Syrian navy. It really wants me to read about how Israel destroyed Assad's Syrian navy. So now I have to go all the way up to the top. I have to click read more again. Now I have to go all the way down, but I have to wait for it to catch up because it's slow. Like this is always fun. So this is how difficult it is to actually read this shit. All that just to circumcise your kid. No, that's not even close. The circumcision of Goyim is to mark them as property. You know, that's what their silly book says to do. That's what they do. They mark us as their property. The reason they do it is to keep God from destroying the earth, apparently. God doesn't care about how we treat each other, how we treat the earth, you know, anything like that. What God cares about is that the Jews continue to circumcise their boys. It's the most important tenet. It's no other mitzvah is more important, and it's as important as any other mitzvah in their belief structure. They really don't want you to read that. Oh, no. It would happen to you too, I think. But I highly suggest everybody go read this shit. Because it's actually a much longer article. And it goes into a lot of shit that, you know, it's just crazy. In other words, Furman writes, ritual abuse occurs when a religious, political, or spiritual authority uses their political or their position of power to manipulate victims' belief systems and thereby control them. According to him, ritual abuse is primarily a strategy employed by groups involved in producing images of child abuse, child prostitution, and other forms of organized abuse, and does not constitute a separate category of violence. Rabbi Furman also presents research by Joanna Schroeder and additional researchers from Germany who examined attitudes among 165 adults who testified that they were victims of organized ritual sexual abuse, as well as the attitudes of 174 professionals who supported victims of this type of abuse. In 88% of the reports from both groups, therapists and victims, identical ideological expressions emerged. The ideological content and objectives were also presented in a similar order. Justification of violence, justification of sex. God damn it. Justification of sexual exploitation, and maintaining power and control, followed by maintaining group commitment and ensuring redemption. Do you understand? It's exactly what I'm telling you it is. Right? Where do you read this? I provide you with this goddamn link in every single video I do. It's in the description. It will be after the fact, but if you want to go read it for yourself, go look at a previous video. Israel Hayom, or just search it. Israel Hayom, bottom of darkness. It'll pop right up. But it's you know, justifying violence, sexual exploitation, maintaining power and control, and maintaining group commitment while ensuring redemption. You want to be redeemed for your sins, don't you? So, you know, you better stay loyal and quiet. The researchers conclude that ideologies are primarily means to justify organized sexual violence, Rabbi Froman said. However, in this article, Froman argues that some reports in Israel suggest ideology wasn't merely a means to justify organized sexual violence, but form the foundation of the abuse, the foundation of it. This is part of the religion itself, part of the cult itself. This isn't just some crazy conspiracy theory. Rabbi Furman references, for example, the Nalat case, which, quote, is just one of many similar cases, most occurring in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods. For instance, a private ultra-Orthodox court writes that ritual sexual abuse is cruel and frequent, accompanied by traumatic, accusatory, and confusing ceremonies. The abuse is carried out by large criminal organizations and or cults and or secret organizations with financial investment and recruitment of assisting personnel. The abuse carries for its perpetrators substantial profits, such as satisfaction of deviant urges, commerce, and pornography, threats of extortion, and more. According to Furman, the court document describes the practice of organized abuse from preparing the scene through recruiting collaborators from educational institutions and transportation drivers to the ceremonies themselves. The ceremonies take place under the leadership of an important rabbi. After a Torah lesson, approximately every 2 weeks, parents gather their children for what is called soul correction. All couples recite psalms together, sing verses. Soul correction. Sing verses repeatedly with melody, all while standing without clothes. They stand in a circle, naked, praying, lighting candles. The children are positioned in the middle of the circle, also naked. Right? I'm making this up. Some Goyim's making this up in the Israel Hayom article. In the document intended for parents, educators, and rabbis, the ultra-Orthodox court Shari Mishpat in Jerusalem details numerous methods and actions taken by abusers, aiming to warn and raise awareness of this spreading phenomenon and to protect children. Among other things, the document states that to shield themselves from exposure, abusers deliberately act in extreme ways contrary to logic, quote, so that even if children tell, they will sound completely delusional. What? That does not exist. Don't forget around the world, right? So why do they circumcise everybody? For the trauma it causes. It's why the United States has the highest prison population. Why the men here are so rape focused and dick focused and so fucked up mentally when it comes to their dicks is because one of the first things they experience is something so extremely traumatic that if they waited and gave people the option to do it, it would never fucking happen. Very rarely would it happen. Very rarely if they said, all right, you have to wait until, because you can't mutilate your body in any other way. So you'd have to wait till you were 18. But once you were 18, you could circumcise. How many people you think would do it? They wouldn't. James Owen and man, circumcision causes negative pain, trauma. It's easier to program someone through trauma. It's literally one of the first memories we have in existence. As males in this country, we are taken from our parents, put into an incubator, then taken from the incubator into some cold fucking room where we are crucified. Our arms are strapped down to the sides and our legs are strapped together in a crucifix kind of position. They put a little bell thing over the top of the penis and spin it around, and when they do, a blade comes out and cuts the foreskin. And when that happens, the kid goes and goes into shock. And then they take the kid while it's in shock and they put it into the incubator and let it, however long it takes, an hour, 20 minutes, 2 hours, whatever, however long it takes for the kid to finally come out of shock and sort of pass out. Then they take it to the parents and they go, oh, little man is sleepy. Oh, look at this. He's a twooper. And that's literally one of the first things we experience as American males. Whereas in their community, they wait 8 days, specifically because the woman's vagina is so toxic and disgusting that, can't touch that baby. It came out of there. It's got 8 days to purify. Anything that passes through the nasty woman's body and the blood and all that. Even if it's cesarean section, it has to wait 8 days before that baby is purified enough for the moil to perform the bris. Well, the moil performs Brit Milah. They have the bris. The bris is the party. Brit Milah is they hire the moil to come where the family is all there and everybody stands around and watches as this man gets paid to cut Brit Milah, then suck metzitzia, and then the baby is passed around to all the different families and given love, and it's okay, everything's good. We know you're a little shocked, but you're still instantly given love. And you've been alive for 8 days, so you've experienced love. You've experienced joy. You've experienced warmth, softness, happiness, food, cold. You've experienced things. It's not just your first experience to have your penis traumatically mutilated.
Doesn't that create more of a feeling of betrayal? That these people that were originally nice to you all of a sudden stop it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's very confusing. I'm sure it has to do with why they're such fucked up weirdos. But it's still better than what they do to us. This is your first experience in this world. You've been alive for hours. You might have latched on by now. Might have. You got mom in your eyes and shit. You can barely see. You can barely hear. The only thing you recognize is your mother's rhythm. You recognize your mother's heartbeat, your mother's breathing rhythm. You recognize her voice. You kind of recognize your dad, but it's all about your mom and this connection that you have to your mom. And so they take that away from you, traumatize you, and they don't even have the decency to bring you right to your mom. They let you go through shock all by yourself and figure out what the fuck just happened to you. This is extremely traumatic, way, way worse than we ever think it is. It's one of two things that I regret with my children. Circumcision and vaccines. Them having any vaccines. I feel like such a putz. And if I would have had support from my woman, it wouldn't have happened. So now it just sent me to Donald Trump, genius or something or other. Now we have a Putin article. Donald Trump, genius or madness. That's where it just took me to while I was telling you this story. A completely different article. And now it's not letting me go backwards. And now it just took me completely out. Have you ever seen an article act like this? Have you ever tried to read an article and had it do anything like this, where it made it so it was so difficult that you almost didn't want to do it?
Oh, that's actually happened. But see, I'm impatient if it comes up and ads start popping up.
No, not that. I get that ads pop up. I'm talking about the article actively kicks you out of it over and over again, making it frustratingly difficult to read. This is on a different level. I gotta scroll back down to try to find where I was. Listen, there's just so much more to this article. I'm not going to even try to read it. It's really a long article. I've done it before. It's an extremely long article. But I encourage you to absolutely go read it, because it puts it all together. It's the glue that makes it all make sense. Let's see. A lot of people have been circumcised here in the UK too. People I went to school with were either atheists or Christian. They told me the hygiene reasons, but that's bullshit. It's not a thing. It's a wives' tale. It's some propaganda bullshit to make you, fall in line. Of course there's going to be all these narratives and shit like that where, oh yeah, no, it's a really hygienic and guys got older and they blah blah. Dude, people weren't circumcised forever. The majority of the men in the world aren't circumcised, and guess what? They're just fine. It's so fucking crazy. It's so just crazy. It's just fucking crazy. Yeah, just about everybody in the U.S. Of course, we've been put through this horrible, horrible ritual. Again, it comes down to Abraham is having a conversation with God. This is after the flood, and this is after Sodom and Gomorrah. This is just after Sodom and Gomorrah. And so Abraham is like, yo, builds himself a God phone. Obviously, well, Abraham always had a God phone, I guess. But he went to his God phone, and he's talking to God, and God's like, hey, listen, I was a little drunk. I'm sorry. I wiped everyone out again. Because it sounds like Sodom and Gomorrah wiped everyone out except for a small piece. But I don't know. But God's all like, look, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. But they were just all acting so bad and having so much fun. And I don't like any kind of fun. So I'll make you a deal. You're like 900. But I am going to, I will never destroy the world again if you and all of your descendants circumcise themselves and your slaves. You could do your slaves for fun, but it's most important that you guys circumcise. And so Abraham with like, oh yeah, okay, that sounds good. And God's like, all right, cool. I'll show you rainbows from now on. Every time you see a rainbow, that's me honoring my promise to never destroy you again as long as you keep circumcising. The Jews keep circumcising. And so Abraham went and he circumcised himself, of course, because, that makes sense. And he called in all of his slaves. He had like 90 slaves or some shit. And he circumcised all of them. And, told everybody, hey, I spoke to God on the God phone. God said if we don't do this, he's gonna kill everybody again. He's an asshole like that. So we got to do this from now on. And everybody was like, okay, Abraham, that makes sense. God would make us in a way and then ask us to cut a piece off. Why not? We should absolutely do that to our children. But again, let's not do that for 8 days because we don't want them to be, all gross from the vagina and stuff. Let's see. He seems like look something up about Jewish folks. It does that. He couldn't even stop a couple naked people from eating a piece of fruit when they were the only two people on earth. Yeah, see, that's one of those things. They're the only two people on earth. Then when they leave the garden, then Cain and Abel take wives from the people of Nod. So who the fuck were the people of Nod? I thought they were the only two people. The best part about that, again, it's so stupid because the thing that makes everything go awry is that somehow God doesn't have his security system set up yet, right? The God that can see everything and knows everything and, no time and space and blah, blah, blah. God knows, he's everywhere at all times. Apparently back then, God used to leave. God would be like, all right, I got to go to work. I'll be back later. Stay naked. And so one day, the snake, starts talking to Eve, and I would imagine they were just really stupid. And Eve was like, what you want, snake? Why you talk to me? You, snake no talk. Why you talk? You talk. A snake talk. Why snake talk? And the whole time she's scratching her shit. And the snake's like, hey, why don't you stop scratching? And she's like, it itches. I call it itches. It itches a lot. And Snake's like, hey, you want that to stop happening? And she's like, very much. I don't like the itchy. And the snake's like, all right, well, go take a bite of that fruit that's over there. Because, God put that tree in the middle of the thing that I guess made apples. That the animals didn't eat. What happened when the animals ate the apple? What happened when all the bugs? Did God create all the bugs? Were they just sitting there like, all right, that's a centipede. That's a millipede. That's a beetle. That's a dung beetle. That's a flying beetle. But God put the tree, and Eve's like, no, 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 no. God said not to eat it. And the snake's like, I know, he's a dick. He knows that that'll make it so you stop, you say itching? Yeah, you'll stop itching. You promise me stop itching? I promise. I don't like itching. Oh, my fingers smell. So she goes and takes a bite of the apple and she has the Google Earth experience. And comes back down. And she's like, holy shit, I'm naked. I got bugs all in my coochie. That's why I'm so fucking itchy all the time. Oh, why am I naked? Bugs all in my asshole and my coochie. God damn it. Here, luckily, I happen to know how to make clothes out of palm fronds. I'll make me a sexy little palm bikini. And then she woke up Adam, who was sleeping, scratching his shit. And she's like, Adam, wake up. Adam, wake up. And Adam's like, huh? Adam, come here, you got to try this. And Adam said, why you talk so funny? She said, Adam, just trust me, you got to take a bite of this. No, 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 no. No. God said not to do it. And she's like, bitch, do you want me to suck your dick again? Uh-huh. Take a bite. Okay. Takes a bite, has the fucking super earth experience, and immediately goes, my darling Eve, I cannot believe we are naked. That is why we are so itchy all the time and our fingers stink so bad. Because we've been infested with bugs because we're naked and then we scratch it and it makes our fingers smell. No shit. And so he was like, Eve, can you make me a nice set of slacks or some trousers or something out of some leaves? And she's like, way ahead of you, bam. Eve's leave shorts, trademark. Puts on his shorts. And just when he puts on his shorts, God comes home from work. And God's like, Adam, wherefore art thou, Adam? Because he doesn't give a shit about Eve. So God is literally walking around the fucking garden looking for Adam because he can't find Adam. I thought he was like, everywhere at all times. The best part is Adam and Eve are sitting there hiding behind a tree. Hope he can't see us. He's going to find us. We got to go out there. Okay, well, I guess we go out there then. And as soon as they stepped out from behind a tree, God looked at him and went, ah! Why are you not naked anymore? You took a bite from the tree, didn't you? And Adam was like, she told me to do it. And he was like, you bitch. I knew you'd take him away from me. I didn't want to make you in the first place. But no, my garden attendant had to have a little. He saw the other animals fucking and he wanted to fuck something. So I had to make you, you little bitch. Well, guess what? From here on out, whenever you procreate, it's going to be painful and awful and you're going to die sometimes and it's horrible. Fuck you, bitch. Get your shit and get out. And they left and they had their 2 kids and then their kids took wives from the people of Nod. People often forget too about Lilith. Eve wasn't first. Lilith was first. But Lilith didn't listen like Eve did. So Lilith got kicked out. Anyway, I have one person watching. One person watching, 16 likes, and 2,500 subscribers. If that doesn't make sense to you, well, you're probably an idiot.
Well, let me ask you, do you know the story of Wolfman Jack? And what is your take on him?
I don't know what the story of Wolfman Jack is. I couldn't care less about Wolfman Jack.
He played a pretty significant role in the music industry and crossing the segregated lines.
He did what he was told to do, and the narrative we have is
he went
what...
down to Mexico because he wouldn't do what he was told to do.
Yeah. He wouldn't... If he was doing what he wasn't supposed to be doing, we wouldn't know who he is. He wasn't bigger than the system. Look at what they do to me. I have 0 watchers now, 16 likes, and I have 2,500 subscribers. 6 months ago, I could get as many as 40,000 views. Do you understand? It literally changed the day after Charlie got kirked. And the whole time that I was allowed to have those views, I kept saying they're going to shut this down soon. Because it's already been that way. I've built my feeds to the point where I'm getting 25,000 plus views multiple times only to be stifled, only to be shut down in some way, shape, or form. It's just what it is. There's nothing I can do to override this system. I beg you guys always, share the shit. I'll go sending me comments. Quinn O'Flynn. Oh, his name's Quinn O'Flynn. Gotcha. 17 likes says it all for me. Well, 16. I can only see 16. You guys are commenting, and I say, oh, now I have two watchers. If they don't want you to know who the person is, it doesn't matter how good you are at this thing. It doesn't matter how talented you are at that thing. I'm technically a polymath, man. I can do a couple of different things really well. I would make someone a shit ton of money. The type of person that would invest in a Howard Stern because he's such a shock jock. It's Howard Stern. If they did that with me, I would clearly make them rich. Not to mention the music part of it. That would make everybody lots and lots of money. If they don't want you to be somewhere, you end up being some weird loser doing your feed to one person while your wife, gives up on you years back. Because, real life is here and they're not going to work. It must not be good enough. It's just what it is. It's how life works. That's how this system works. So for a Wolfman Jack to break all the rules and then, fuck it. It doesn't happen by accident. If they want to shut something down, they do. So you guys have yourselves a wonderful day. Go check out all the links that'll be in the description after I edit it. Have yourself a wonderful day, and you pedophiles, kill yourself. 16 likes.